Somewhere in the void of autism, I discovered the magical substance that occurs when you mix dirt and water together. When you mix dirt and water together, you make a substance that you can make anything you want to out of that substance. So out of that substance, I made my pocket knives and my wristwatches. Now, my brother's wristwatches, they were made out of metal and leather. My wristwatch was made out of dirt and string, but I had one. And this wonderful red dirt we had in our back garden, it was really good for making stuff. It wasn't so good for growing stuff, but I could make whatever I wanted to out of it. And you put it in the sun and it would get as hard as a rock. Well, I can't tell you how many pocket knives I made out of that red dirt and water. No matter how hard it got in the sunshine, you put it in my pocket, and in about a week, it's pretty much just dirt again. And I got to start over again and make another one. This is occurring at a point in my life where a lot of things, other things are happening. And my life was, I was coming alive. I was finding myself in a world that was composed of pain and chaos. And the primary sense of pain came from my father from the beatings. So I started making models of my father out of that red dirt. And when he would beat me, I would smash and I would grind up and I would get rid of that. And I would take that smashed up and I would throw it in a place I would never use it for anything else. So I made a lot of models of my father and I smashed them and I ground them. And from time to time my older brother beat me up too. I don't think he ever broke any of my bones, but I made models of him and I smashed them and I grind them and threw them away. I guess from time to time, just about everybody in the family got made and smashed and thrown away. But mostly I didn't like my father and I didn't like me. So I made lots of models of my father and me, and they got smashed and ground up. And without knowing what it was I was doing right then, I was creating a very important concept for myself. I was creating the concept of change. Here is this model, and it's smashed and it's turned into nothing and thrown away. Change is when something becomes something else. And having made this model out of red dirt and water, it was now a part of who and what I was. It was something that I could think with. And I was creating more and more stuff, and I realized that it really was the beatings that I didn't like, not so much my father. So I started to make models of beatings. And I would smash them and grind them and throw them away, and more models. And I started getting even more where I was creating a scenario. And one day I created a scenario that had a before and an after. And in this scenario was also a cause and effect. And something that happens as a result of something else. I didn't know the name of the idea, but I had created the concept of consequence. And creating the concept of consequence, with it now being a part of me, I could now think with it. And I could take myself out of an environment where a beating would happen, or I wouldn't do something that would cause a beating to happen. And the beatings stopped. I was 13 years old, and I was creating ideas that I could think with. So I now had the concept of consequence, and I am making things out of clay. And there was one more thing that happened at this point. When asked what it was like to be autistic, I can't tell you. I don't have actual memories of being that bad, but I have a sense of it, an internal sense of it. And my sense of being autistic was I was everything and nothing at the same time. And what that feels like is wonderful. I think if the average person could have 5 minutes of that, they would rather be autistic than what they were. But when that's all you are, and you're supposed to be a person, it's not enough. Plus, I was being pulled into a world where I had to be something other than that. And when I made the concept of consequence and the concept of self, what occurred was I was now separated from everything and nothing. Everything else was everything and nothing, and I was separated now from it. The next thing that is happening, once you've got the concept of before and after, you've got the foundation for the concept of time. And when I say time, I'm talking about, I am not talking about, the physicist time, at least not the theoretical physicist time. But for us, time is the measurement of change. And our primary purpose for having time is the ability to predict and create a future. And I was at a point now that I could think with these ideas. It was like, tomorrow I have to go to school. In other words, with this basic thinking, I was able to predict what tomorrow was going to be. And I can think with the idea of time. Now, I have to tell you that looking back, my perspective is very much more sophisticated than it was back when I was making the basic ideas. But by having the basic ideas, I had something better than the complex one. I had something that I could really work with and think with. And now that we have this idea of time, and things are always changing. In other words, I can't think with just one of these ideas that includes all of the ideas. The next idea was the way things follow each other, one after another. Things follow each other in time. But that's not the only way things can follow each other. Things can follow each other in size, or in amount, or in an arbitrary order, like ABC or 1, 2, 3. And things can also follow each other in importance. And I'm making these ideas, and I'm now thinking with these ideas, and what happened in my universe is now the everything that nothing was is now separated into its individual little pieces. And the world is composed of individual little pieces that aren't even related to each other. And every one of these little pieces fits within what I already know. Every one of these little pieces used to be something else. Now it's this, and in the future it's going to be something else. Because everything that exists is a consequence of what has existed before. And I'm able to think with this idea. And things are now separate, and I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at the idea of things and existing, and I'm realizing that in order for something to exist in our universe, there has to be a place for it in this universe to exist. If there isn't a place for it to exist, it can't be here. So it first has to have a place that it can exist in, and not only that, it has to be in that place. Because if it was someplace else, it wouldn't be in the right place. So it would be wrong, okay? So not only does it have to have a place, it has to have a position. And everything that exists in its own time continuum. It has a beginning and it will have an end. And where it is within its own time continuum is its condition. So in order for something to exist, it has to have also a condition. And when something is in its proper place, in its proper position, and in its proper condition, it is in order. If any one of those three things is missing, it is now in disorder. And with this, something else changed in my universe. Having this knowledge, I could create order. I could put something in its proper place, in its proper position, and if I had to, I could fix its condition. In other words, I could establish order. Order is the natural enemy of chaos. And when I could create order, most of the chaos went out of my universe. I was 17 years old at that point. And at the age of 17, the first week of June of 1960, I got my first IQ test. Now, how you can test the IQ of someone who can't read or write and who doesn't speak coherently, I don't know. It took a week for them to do it, all day, every day. And at the end, they told my mother that I wasn't an uneducatable retardation. I was actually a genius. I scored 137 points on an IQ test.